Hello, and welcome to The Beat, brought to you by the livingmusicresource.com from the University of Mississippi in Oxford. So, the Living Music Resource and The Beat. We are on a mission to take the traditions of the past and bridge them with the resources and technology of the 21st century. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your questions, what your comments are. We want you to be part of the experience. We are on a music research revolution. I am Nancy Maya Balish, the LMR creator and editor, and your host for today for The Beat. I have the distinct pleasure of being a professor here at the University of Mississippi. I'm a singer, I'm a researcher, I am an advocate of new music and living musicians. I'm also a person who likes to think outside of that little box. If you're part of the inaugural Beat, you heard me say that I believe this experience is a combination of inside the actor's studio, with Watch What Happens Live, Andy Cohen, and music. We are melding those three together for our little experience here. Now, if you look across the bottom of your screen, you should see where you can tweet us, where you can email us, or just chat. Be writing away in there. We want to hear from you. Today's Beat is exceptionally special because the two artists who are here are the individuals who inspired me to do this project. And let's introduce you right now. We have William Bolcom and Joan Morris. Let's give them a warm welcome. A little bit about William Bolcom. Just a few things. Named the 2007 Composer of the Year by Musical America and honored with multiple Grammy Awards. He is a composer of cabaret songs, concertos, sonatas, operas, symphonies, and so very much more. He was also awarded the 1988 Pulitzer Prize in Music. Mezzo-soprano Joan Morris has concertized with her husband and accompanied William Bolcom around the world. In the words of the Chicago Tribune, her voice is notable for ease, flexibility, expressiveness. You understand every word she sings, and in these songs, the words deserve to be heard. She projects not just the song, but the character singing it, and gives that character her own irresistibly funny and winning personality. All right, another round of applause. Welcome these two. All right.
Yeah, all of our recordings, we learned that too. When we recorded at Rutgers Church in New York, we had to wait when a subway train went underneath. And sometime we'd be in the middle of a terrific take, ruined, so you have to...
Somebody out in front of the church was getting mugged, so we couldn't... That sort of happened over time.
Nothing like that is going on here, all right? I want to mention something. I said a moment ago that one of the inspirations for this is Watch What Happens Live. And last night, coincidentally, they had on two musical theater icons. They had on Julie Andrews and Idina Menzel, two just, huge bodies of the musical theater work. And I don't know if anyone checked out our Facebook page this week, but we put up your mashup of Julie Andrews' very famous My Favorite Things When It Meets Three Penny Opera. And check it out if you haven't, because what I just described about you, Joan, I think that piece shows all those elements we just talked about. Irresistibly funny and your winning personality. Talk about that piece a little bit.
Well, our friend John Wallowich played cabaret in New York. He wrote a lot of cabaret songs. And this was one song we heard him do it at that place on 43rd Street, which I think is gone now.
Danny's Cabaret Lounge, yes, is one of the casualties. A lot of these cabaret places just don't last.
And John, so he sang it, and I said, John, I have to have that song. And he never shared it with anybody. So here it comes in the mail, a copy handwritten called Three Penny Things. It says, Joan, dear, give this to no one else. Martha Schlama begged me for it. Maybe I shouldn't have been so selfish. And the curious thing is, when I first started doing it, I didn't do it with an accent. And then gradually over time...
we went out. Do you remember we went to have dinner with John.
John,
The old Sazerac, now gone.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, try a German accent. He was the one who said it.
Okay.
And so we did. But
to me,
I should also tell you a little bit, I think I know why he didn't have Martha Schlama, because Martha Schlama, whom I worked with, Alvin Epstein and Martha and I used to do a Kurzweil cabaret. Now, Martha had a German accent, so it would not be so funny to have her do a German accent because you couldn't help but have one.
I heard German as a little girl from my grandparents, and they came to America in 1911. So the German I heard was, I loved the sound of it. Then when I started going to movies about the Second World War, I couldn't believe how much it had changed, the sound of it. Oh, it just sounded so ugly. So I brought in
bad Nazis in the movies, of course.
Well, that too.
But I will say now, I worked in the theaters in Germany, late 50s, early 60s, and through about the middle of that time, and I noticed the difference between the pre-Hitler and post-Hitler diction of actors. It's very, very net. It's very neat. It's very immediate. I mean, we were doing Wojciech, which is the play out of which Wojciech, the opera by Berg, was made. And there's a scene where the old guy came in from the old days, and he sees the blood on Wojciech, and he says, "Ooh, brute!" And everybody else ridiculed him because that was too old-fashioned. So he had to go, "Oh, brute." There you are. Styles have changed.
Well, let's take a question. We've had questions coming in from all over prior to the start of this today. Okay. And from two ladies, Megan and Kimberly, they had a similar question. Was there a specific event in either of your lives that sparked your interest in composing and performing? Or what would you say influenced your choice to go into these areas? Big question, I realize.
Well, maybe performing. Why don't you start with that?
When I got paid.
Motivation enough.
I was studying voice, and my mom worked at a department store, and every month they had a birthday breakfast for all the people whose birthdays were that month. And so she got me a gig doing, I think it was Romance, a Sigmund Rongford song. They paid me $5. I'm like, wow, I can make money from doing this, So, I got my first job. I worked for the telephone company, which transferred me when I went to New York. I used to try out my accents on the board. I remember I tried out a Southern accent one time. The guy said, "Where are you from, honey?" And so I had to confess Portland, Oregon. When I remember the first time someone called Jamaica, I gave him to the overseas operator. I didn't know there was a Jamaica, Queens. So the things you find out.
That's funny. How about you, Bill?
I've been a composer since I can remember. And I was the age of 4 years old. I wanted to be a composer. I wanted to be a pianist too, but I wanted to be a composer who played the piano, which is what I am. And so I can't remember when I started.
All right. Question from Anne. She wanted to know how much of your composition for piano influences your composition of art songs or songs.
Well, if I'm writing art songs for piano and voice, of course. But, and I do tend to think when I'm writing for piano, if I'm writing a part for myself, or I might be writing a part for somebody I know very well. And when you work with a pianist you know very well, you tend to look at their particular strengths, and so I'll write as if I were that person. But otherwise, I tend to sort of filter through my own fingers. I don't work at the piano, but I do know that when I'm working, my fingers are moving, so I'm clearly thinking with my hands.
Interesting. And this sort of segues to another question from Claudia. When writing vocal music, do you automatically write a melody with Joan in mind?
No.
No? That wasn't what I thought you were going to say.
I'm out of here.
All right. Now, wait a minute. They're about to be married 40 years, which I just
say, man, where did we go wrong?
Which I think is just an amazing testament.
If I'm writing for her, I have her in mind, of course.
Yes.
But if I'm writing for somebody else, be it a singer or an instrumentalist or whoever it is, I try to get a good solid beat on that person, and I write for them.
He always said he doesn't write for clarinet, he writes for clarinetist. For the person,
I don't write for voice, I write for singer.
Yeah, it was Joyce Castle or Kim Josephson or Placido Domingo. Yeah. He did a wonderful cycle for Placido that Placido can't do anymore. He's now a baritone. And speaking of that, I was a mezzo-soprano. There was a category in vaudeville called female baritone, and I'm kind of approaching that.
Her voice is moved southwards.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's normal.
Luckily, many women transpose.
Yes. Yes. A question from Shalene. for you, Joan, when your husband is composing a piece for you, how much of the process do you take part in, or do you wait to see the outcome and then give your opinion? I mean, do you interject along the way, or do you wait until it's done?
Sometimes he'll show me something. He'll say, well, will this work? Is this note okay? But usually I want to see the whole thing. You know, he has it all in his head, and I have to let it come out. You can't potchkey with every little thing. That the whole thing would fall apart. It wouldn't work, you know. So I have to leave him alone. And then when we come and sit down to do it, then I can say, okay, you know, this word would be easier, maybe a minor third down or something like that.
All right.
No, I leave
Which is
him
what I
alone
do with every
until-
singer. I've always done that. I've never minded. And some people, for example, we just did A View from the Bridge, my opera, the second one I did for Lyric Opera Chicago. We did it actually with the Michigan Opera Theater in Detroit, and it was really quite a wonderful experience. They were excellent. And there was one thing, the Beatrice, who was the wife of the main character, Eddie Carbone, there was something, she said, I'd like to do this little part with one note up a little higher. And I said, you know, it's very nice, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to give that to the next singer, but it fits for her.
Interesting. I'm going to give you one more question. I just want to give my staff here a cue. After we take this next question, I'd like to move to one of the singers who submitted, and we'll talk about that. Curious, Bill, of the many awards and honors you've received, which one has meant the most to you?
Gosh, I don't know.
Maybe it hasn't come yet.
I don't know. I would love to get the Nobel because it has some money. Actually, I think the only awards that really matter. I have had the Pulitzer. I've had the National Arts Award, which is a very, very high honor, and all those things are lovely, but they don't have any money in them. So I mean, no. Seems to me that the best parts are the ones that have money, and I haven't had enough of those, frankly. I did get the Eddie Medora King Award from in Texas, and that was a nice piece of money. I think she was part of the family of King Ranch, which owns about 2/3 of Texas, and so I'm sure she could afford it. But actually, awards it's funny. I mean, Charles Ives, the great composer, who was also a great insurance man, and famous in both areas. As a matter of fact, he was much of a pathfinder in the insurance business as he was in the music business, and he did finally get a Pulitzer Prize. He didn't bother to go to get it, and he was asked to comment on it, and he said, "Prizes are for children." And I suppose probably in a way they do answer to the child in you. I mean, I'm not sorry I got them. I'm very thankful that I got them, but they haven't made that much difference to my life, no. They really haven't.
Interesting. So we accepted video submissions from singers across the nation, and the staff at LMR selected 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to play each of these singers doing the rendition of a Bolcom piece, and then Bill and Joan are going to give these singers some feedback. So let's go to the first video. Let me give a little background. That is Andrea. She's from New Hampshire, and she received her BA in vocal performance and a Master's of Arts in Music History from the University of New Hampshire. She currently teaches voice and is the president of the Granite State, New Hampshire chapter of NATS. So the pianist that she's with, Catherine, they've collaborated quite a bit, and this is from a live performance. So please, and I will share what she says on here, okay?
Okay. Well, it's beautifully sung, a lot of feeling in her tone. The thing my teacher in college taught me is that the song begins when the first note of the accompaniment starts, and it doesn't end till all that's finished. So I could have done for her pose, that's acceptable to put your hand on the piano, but I could have done for her coming into the mood, you know, before she started singing. It was beautifully sung. I wouldn't criticize that at all. But we were talking about movement earlier today, and how you stand on stage, what you do to be conscious of those things. So before she would want to sing the first word, I would like to see, you know, what's going on in her head, even just a moment of, I don't know, questioning or something. So this is, I guess, an acting critique. And after the end of what she sings, you know, what's going through your head? The song is still, the accompaniment is still going on. And by that last note, you can go through quite a number of things. I let myself think, oh, I want this, if only this could. I let myself think those things when I'm doing the song. So at the end of it, I realize, oh, I have to close it off. Something like that I could have done for that, but you know, it was impeccably sung.
Well, all that, I think I would like to have had waiting. When she had waiting, it was more even. I would have preferred the other. And I couldn't help but just second what you said, because these are acting pieces as much as they are sung pieces. One of the things that really attracted me to what Joan did, this was after we'd fallen in love, then I had to really decide, do I really want to work? I was a little worried because, you know, you can be very crazy about a person, then you see what they do. And not a good idea to fall in love before then. And then I went to see her with her harpist friend. She was working for some years. Well, actually, you were at the Peacock Room.
Peacock Alley at the Waldorf Astoria.
Yeah, that's right. And she was singing to an iced swan. And this iced swan was there. Over here were all the diners. Over here were all the drinkers. And here we were singing right to the iced swan. And I noticed when she did a song that was a little sad, you could see a little tear coming down the swan. But it was very kind of, but when I was amazed at it, I said, this is what I've always looked for, a singing actress or an acting singer, and a kind of complete mixture of the two. And it's hard to tell where one begins and the other one ends. And I said, gosh, this is just what I'd always hoped to find. And I'm not smart. So, I mean, so what else can I do? So that's what really began our whole exploration into American classic popular song, is what we call it. People call it American Songbook, which is okay, but that also includes Woody Guthrie, which we love, but I don't see you doing Woody Guthrie.
No, I've mentioned this earlier today too. My theory is that songs pick me. You know, some songs say, oh yeah, you could do what I want to have heard. That's one reason I love cabaret, is the theatrical side of it. Because I had a voice when I was in high school. You know, my teacher told me, oh yeah, you know, you should be studying. And I was terribly shy. Just getting up in front of people was painful to me. But when I discovered theater and acting, I realized I could be inside another persona. I didn't have to sing as my shy Joan Morris self. I could get up there and be Marguerite, and you know, or somebody fantastic in a Tallulah Bankhead or something like that. And so that I realized that was my way into singing.
Well, because they're all acting pieces. They're all acting pieces. And what you do is what she's saying, of course, is get in the character the minute the music starts. You know, you're doing a vignette. You're doing a piece of person's life. And that is just as true with the Schubert Lied as it is with a cabaret song or whatever else you have. I mean, if there's that kind of extra reality. Otherwise, it's not so interesting. After all, half the song is the words. And that's terribly important.
And you're not someone else. You are the person, even if you're playing a man or whatever. There was a tradition of that in vaudeville. There is a part of each of us inside. We can be many things. You have to tap into that part of you that maybe wondered what it was like to be a guy, or wanted to do something bad, but it comes from you. It is not another person you are being. It is you.
So it is as real as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this song is one of your favorites, correct, Waden?
Oh, it is. Yeah.
It's just there's something just so open and honest about it.
Yeah, and it's easy. Musically. I once complained to Bill. I said, I can't count and feel at the same time. And he said, you have to.
What? All right, let's go to another video example. And
it wasn't the policeman's fault in all the traffic roll. Instead of shouting halt when he saw me, he shouted amor, 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 amor. Even the ice cream man, free ice creams by the score. Instead of shouting Marjorie can one look at me, he shouted amor. Taking less, the rich stopped needing more. Instead of shouting no and yes, both looking at me, shouted amor. Desist and cease. Judge, came to the stand, took my hand, and whispered, amor, 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 amor. Night was turning into day. I walked alone away. Never seen again. But as I passed the church house door, instead of singing amen, the choir was singing amor. Ba-dee-da-da-da, Scooby-Doo-da-da-dee-da-da-dee-da.
Do no mistakes. One of them is, how good was a good how good is a good, because I looked so, it's because I is the wrong note. She sang in G sharp instead of G natural. And then there's another couple places right after Judgy came to the stand and whispered amor, the pianist had the wrong rhythm. Those are small but important. I can't help it.
You did write it after all, yeah? So you want to...
It is, I mean, I'm all for variation, but I'm not crazy about mistakes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really, all these things, you sweat blood to work out whether it should be a G sharp or a G natural. Yep. And those are the things, and that really means a lot. It has to be just so in that kind of way. I allow and love enormous amount of latitude in how you interpret it.
Yeah,
as long as it's done from the inside.
Yeah,
Right.
she did a couple nice little ornaments, but that one she miscounted that. But she came in a little early, and having sweated this song, I really had a time with this because that wasn't natural to me, the Spanish rhythm, and the character too. But when I found the key to it, it was absolute, and that freed me. They talk about the freedom in chains, because you have a structure around you, and
That's what
you're
keeps it alive.
yeah, exactly. You're a goddess, and to me, the notes and the music, the composer and the librettist or the lyricist, they went through thousands of choices for each note, each word they're setting. So I feel I need to honor that, And then if the song doesn't work for me, then it's that thing about songs picking me. I think it really is true. Some songs they say, no, dear, you don't have to go any further.
It doesn't hurt to work on something for a long time and then work out. That's not for me, because there will be other things that come out of that work that will probably be useful to somebody else. But that's absolutely the way it is. You'd have to be sort of very clear about it. The history of this is kind of interesting. The word man, Arnold Weinstein, whom I worked with 45 years, from 1960 till he died in 2005, was a brilliant wordsmith, and now I'm so glad that they're noticing how really great he is. He's quite honored, but I wish it had happened more during his lifetime. And the sad part about when you run an opera, it's William Bolcom's opera. It's really William Bolcom's and Arnold Weinstein's opera, and that's what is very important. And when you do a Franz Schubert, it's your Schubert and Meyerhoff, or Schubert and Müller. And one of the things I would love to see, at least in academic situations, is when you do a song recital, give equal weight to the word person, because you couldn't have done the thing without the words.
It's true. It's true. Going back for a second, I just want to make a comment about your cabaret songs in general, and this one specifically. If the pianist does exactly what's on the page and the singer does exactly what's on the page, it's just this perfect, beautiful puzzle that fits together. And when there's that slight deviation, it loses the absolute finesse that you created.
But once you get the things correct, it's that thing in the Bible: the letter killeth, the spirit giveth life. So yes, you're being correct according to, but you have to enliven it.
Totally.
And you stretch it in little tiny ways, but you honor what's on the page.
And I love your journey with this piece, because correct me if I'm wrong, when you were setting this, it didn't come automatic. I mean, and so your your work through that, I mean, you came to, please tell us about how you came to those rests, and I think it's even more important that we honor them.
This is one of the two published poems during his whole life, Arnold's life as a poet. The first, this is Amor, which was published in those days, a very classy place to have your poem published, because they paid rather well, all of $75, better than any place else. And that is the Ladies' Home Journal, which you would be surprised at, but it was in those days edited by the great poet Auden, Wystan Hugh Auden. And it had a certain kind of renown as a poem. And so he said, would you please set this? And so I tried, and I didn't like it. And I tried again, I didn't like it. And I tried it with him, I said, no, somehow it's missing. So I said, please, Arnold, sing me the opening. And then he went, it wasn't the policeman's fault. The idea of stopping after the, I would never have thought of stopping after the. It wasn't the policeman's fault, but it's just, that's just flat-footed. I didn't like it. And so finally, but it wasn't the policeman's fault. I said, this is salsa. This is Tempo di Barrio. This is going to be connected with, when I was a grad student in California, my cousins and I used to go to this wonderful pachanga guy. His name was Mongo Santa Maria. And you could listen and then dance to it. We all dance. I'd dance with my, Anita, or, Ben would dance with whoever date I brought. And and this jumped up. That is pachanga rhythm. So, suddenly it was grounded. It had a certain kind of place, and I suddenly had the idea of this beautiful girl walking through the barrio and all this going, and you know how they do. And meantime, she's nothing to worry about. She's gorgeous, and right about a couple steps behind her is her brother. So if anybody gives her trouble, he has to answer to that guy. So you had a sense of I need a whole scene. I need something. I want something physical. I like to see what I am writing for in some kind of way. And then, of course, somebody else will come out and find something else. But the funny part about it is it's not one size fits all. It's the question of, in fact, I don't write for voice, I write for singer, but if I have a picture, and it's very clear in my mind, and I have a sense of it, then it actually, since it is so clear, it's easier to change. Mm-hmm. If the focus is there, you can change it to another focus. If there's no focus, it's like one size fits nothing, Mm-hmm. And that's what really happens in this situation. So that's what happened here.
Mm-hmm. Well, that singer, her reading was very good. She had some amusing things, some good acted moments, and little ornaments she put. None of that is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. I do feel that there was a certain kind of physical unawareness of what she did. Mm-hmm. She did a few things with her arms like that, and that's fine in a way, but it didn't seem to really tie to the thing. Uh-huh. Maybe it would be a good idea to go and Google Mongo Santa Maria and see what it looks like.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now you can. I mean, all these things are so available now.
Mm-hmm. Make it a little more organic.
Something like this. It really is a dance piece. See, it's a Hispanic dance piece coming from that whole tradition.
We were inspired by that here. We made our little music video, our first one, and at the end of this, we're going to play it again if you haven't seen it.
We had terrific.
We had fun. All right, cool. And just a little side note, that was Corey from Pennsylvania, and she is a master's student at Penn State University. All right, we're going to go to our third singer. While pulling up, I'll tell you, this is Arden from Oklahoma, and she is going to be singing Toothbrush Time.
It's toothbrush time, 10 a.m. again, and toothbrush time. Last night at 9:30, it seemed okay. But in the light of day, not so fine at toothbrush time. Now he's crashing round my bathroom. Now he's reading my degree, perusing all my pills, reviewing all my ills, and he comes out smelling like me. Now he advances on my kitchen. Now he raids every shelf, till from the pots and pans and puddles and debris emerges 3 eggs, all for himself. Oh, how I'd be ahead if I'd stood out of bed. I wouldn't sit here grieving, waiting for that wonderful moment of his leaving. And toothbrush time, 10 a.m. again, and toothbrush time. I know it's sad to be alone. It's so bad to be alone. Still, I should have known that I'd be glad to be alone. I should have known. I should have known. Never should have picked up the phone and called him. Hey, listen, oh, you gotta go too? So glad you understand. And by the way, did you say 9 tonight again? See you then. Toothbrush time. 10
she is a musical theater major. So what would you like to say?
Oh, there's a character there already,
Yes.
you know.
I always say when I see something interesting or a little different, I may steal a couple of those things from you. Really, a marvelous reading. I love the talking at the end. It just
The
felt...
and at the last page is the best and I've heard so far.
Yes.
That's a hard and.
The accompaniment, a little slow, started a little slow. And
It seemed kind of tentative at first.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't bad. It just a matter of, it should be a little, it seems a little too discreet somehow.
Yeah. Could be a little crisper, but your readings were marvelous. Other than that, the tempo thing could be brought up a little more with the accompanist.
Shade.
Yeah. But bravo.
Yeah, no, we're very happy.
Okay. Now, a question that has come in, and we've gotten a lot prior to today, is people want to know, how did you meet?
Oh, well, I'm sitting in my apartment on Christopher Street, 1972. I had a fifth-floor walk-up. I lived in the gay section, and I was kind of the resident hetero. They were all very tolerant of me. I had many friends. Unfortunately, many of them whom I have to mourn now. They died of the plague, which is very sad. But anyway, so I was living there, and an old friend of mine from college had come, and we were going to go out and eat Chinese, and all of a sudden my buzzer downstairs rang, and we had just put the buzzers in, and the front door locks were quite recent too. Before that, my whole apartment was knocked over 6 times. This is the old village, and the 70s was a pretty high crime time in New York. You know, you didn't take the subway after sunset if you were smart and things like that. So, you know, thankfully they did put in this novelty of a buzzer, and so I answered, and there was somebody I knew slightly from parties. I'd seen her many times, Francie, nice girl. And she had said, I have a girl I want you to meet. And I said, well, bring her up. So she came up. And there she was. And Francie came before, and I'm looking down the stairs, and here is this girl, pregnant with twins, it turned out, you know, sort of sashaying sideways as she came up the stairs. And behind her was this little girl in octagonal glasses, looking kind of like Mary Poppins. And they came into my little, walk up, and there she came and sat down on the sofa, which is also my bed, but it was folded up. And she sat there rather primly. And then she went back. I had some curtains in the back of my one-room apartment, and I think probably went back to find there was some girl I was hiding. And then she came and sat down. Mm-hmm. And then we started talking and so on and so forth. And Francie, after a while, realized that maybe you'd be all right. She was there to make sure that everything was fine and you were safe and so on. And then we actually ordered out Chinese, I think. Uh-huh. And then my old friend, I think, also realized it was time for him to go. And she stayed. Yep. Here she is.
I would say we started a conversation. We haven't finished it.
That's right.
I love that. I love it. Don't you feel like you're watching Newlyweds? I mean, seriously, there's just this fresh love that's just so beautiful.
Francie and I had been on a non-union tour together. She was a Jewish girl, and when we came back to New York, she met and married this artist, and her husband said when she became pregnant with their first child, which did turn out to be twins, and they were born on Bill's
birthday.
On Bill's birthday. And she and I had the same birthday, 5 years apart. So all these little coincidences. Anyway, what she says to me about Bill, she says, oh, I met this guy. You might like to meet him. He used to be a classical musician, but he's given all that up. He's playing ragtime. And, I mean, she was an actress, not a musician, so she didn't know. So I thought, well, I'll meet him. You know, I had other guys, and I had an act with a harp. Well, yeah. And I had an act with a harpist, so I wasn't looking for an accompanist. So we had a chance to get to know one another before we started working together.
In fact, as you could see, I was a little worried about working with her because I was already quite attracted, but I just, I'd had 2 very bad marriages. I wasn't ready to get myself committed again, and I remember telling you I was never going to get married again.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it was too painful, yeah. Well, marriage is a 3-ring circus. There's the engagement ring, the wedding ring, the suffering. And my mom said, 3rd time's the charm.
Well, she finally decided she even liked me, so it was all right. When you get along with your mother-in-law, that things are okay.
That's true.
We miss both of our mothers. They were great people.
And Bill's friend, he was writing a book about U.B. Blake. U.B. Blake and Noble Sissel wrote a show in 1921 called Shuffle Along, first show that had jazz dance on Broadway. And U.B., you took me out to meet him, and he came out to our wedding in Ann Arbor in 1975, and he played the wedding march in ragtime.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill's mom did a little cakewalk down the aisle.
Is there time
so
to tell
cute.
the story about that whole time we went out?
to Ubies?
To Ubies, yeah.
Well,
I don't know how much time we
Go
have.
ahead, please.
All right, so here, this is, we went quite late because Ubi was a late person. He'd be up till 5 o'clock in the morning and get up at noon, which is about the opposite of what I am now. Now I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to bed at noon, but not quite. But anyway, so here we are. We're there, and he had a lovely brownstone. There's a whole section in Bedford-Stuyvesant, which is lovely old brownstones, very well kept. They had block associations, you could tell, because they had the right period curtains. If you wanted to do an 1870s period movie anywhere, you could just have to take off the no parking signs and take away the cars, and you could do it, no problem. And the beautiful English basement, you walked right in, and that's where he had his grand old Steinway. It was wonderful, and he was very cordial, very nice, and you learned one of his songs. And immediately, Ubi, who was always the teacher, said, do this here, do this there, showed you a little trick, how to make an ending.
Start the ending here, build it. He was teaching you from the very first.
When I first met him, he was teaching me. It was like that. He's an extraordinary guy. So finally, he said, no, Bill, play a waltz. Well, I've been learning some of his English waltzes. He loved English-style waltzes circa 1910. It was a style he had. So he'd written one for, in honor of his wife, Marion. So I started playing waltz. He takes her in his arms, and he starts dancing with her. And I'm very rarely ever been a jealous person, but this fellow knew exactly how to treat a woman. And, he just treated her like a doll, like a china, and danced with her. And I got terribly jealous. I'm playing away. I'm playing his waltz. He's going to take my girl away, and seething away. So I finished the thing. And she conveniently went off to the bathroom, and he said, marry that girl. She's a lady.
Aww.
The reason he danced with her was to see how she moved. He knew women that way. I mean, he started out, his first gig at the age of 10, he was playing in houses of ill repute in Baltimore, so he knew women inside out.
Okay. We're going to have to change our rating here in a minute. Oh, dear. Yeah. That's all right. We'll get more viewers.
But every time I talk to him, when are you going to marry that girl? Don't let her go. She's a lady, Don't let her say anybody else get it, every time. And so finally, I got my second wife. We were separated, and I was able to get the separation and the divorce all worked out. And finally, I could marry her. And again, it was a very late time. You and I had done a concert, and we went over to Cobble Hill in Brooklyn, where the Long Island Hospital was. He was just in there for tests. And we came into his hospital room, and all the nurses had fallen in love with him. And so we get there. It was very late. We were way back, way late for the regular visiting hours, but they let us go in. We came in. Here he is, 89 or something. He looked like Ramses in the tomb. He looked absolutely thousands of years old. He was asleep. He wakes up, and suddenly he comes back later. Oh, Bill, oh, Joan, my gosh, here you are. And so he was so excited, and he came to life. I never saw anything like it. And then he said, so what's up? And he says, well, I just finally am able to work out my marriage, and with Joan, and he said, I don't care where I am or what I'm doing, I'll be there. So he came out to Ann Arbor, and he stayed at a hotel nearby, and he was just absolutely marvelous. We have pictures of that whole party at our house after that, and it was just a wonderful experience. I'll never forget it.
May I interject? Earlier today, you shared something that on your gift to Bill.
Learning
yes.
Jello.
Would you share that?
Oh, sure. We went out to.
We don't have to share the lime jello one.
Well, we won't perform it. We're just going to talk about a piece.
Oh, I see. You added that for the reception.
Yeah, there you go. We might have some over there.
Boy, oh boy.
No, there's not. I promise.
Okay. We went out to visit my mom in Portland, Oregon. I had come to New York in '65 from Portland. My family had no money. It takes 3 days and 4 nights on the bus to get to New York from Portland. And I was so disappointed when I got in the bus. I thought it would say New York City. It said Albuquerque because we went through, So anyway, I got there, and let's see. Oh God, that distracted me. So we'll talk about lime jello. So I hadn't been able to go back to to visit my mom. I didn't have the money to do it. But working for the phone company, being a long distance operator, they transferred me, and you could call. There was a room where you could have free calls, and so I could call my mom. I stayed in touch with her. There were a couple girls trying to call Frank Sinatra that never got through. So anyway, so Bill says, well, why don't let's go out to Portland, and so great.
I had enough money suddenly. I was doing better. I'd gone freelance for a number of years and having some trouble. All of a sudden, things were looking good.
And we went.
So I could afford to take out.
We went to a little restaurant called Henry Teely's, where he says it was all the ladies. He used to play for these ladies' musical clubs, and they'd feed you this food that looked pretty but tasted sort of weird, And
iceberg lettuce on a plate, canned pear, dollop of mayonnaise, and a maraschino cherry, and that was salad.
Yeah.
And this is the old-fashioned lady food. Everything's
So we were sitting in that restaurant, and he asked to borrow my notebook. He started giggling, and he wrote out this lyric. About ladies, the minutes will soon be read today. The garden club and weaving class, I'm sure, have much to say. So all this stuff, and he showed it to me, and I looked at it, I said, oh, it's too silly. I'll never do it. So that was 1972, so I learned it for a wedding present in 1975.
So
we did it for the first time at the party at our house after we got married. And, oh gosh, we've done it thousands of times for an encore.
So other people, too.
And been served
It's hilarious.
One time a lady she says, oh, I put a little creme de menthe in to make it taste better.
It's a great
But I'll
piece.
never forget, one of the times we were playing East Rochester, New York, and a very good close friend was inviting us for a kind of after-concert party at his house in Rochester, and they had at the end of the concert, a fellow running down had this whole big, we thought, he looked just like the guy who had just shot George Wallace, but of course it couldn't have been. And it turned out he would become a music critic for the Philadelphia Inquirer eventually. He came with his paper plate with lime jello and cottage cheese and all the rest of it and brought it up to the stage.
So I just took this is our next encore.
So, she treated it like a bouquet. And so we went And so we went to the party, and we all looked at this poisonous green lump. And we took it to...
Nobody could eat it, so we put it down the disposal. The sound. I'll never forget it. I don't want to die. No.
That's funny. What do people make at Christmas time? The jokes about, what is that? Christmas,
fruitcake.
What is it? Fruitcake, yes.
Yeah.
That's sort of the similar thing. I don't know. I guess there's good ones. I don't know.
6 months later.
And you're like, oh, what do I do with this? I think this conversation, though, about your relationship is a good segue. We like to throw in something sort of fun and silly with each of our little live streams. So I'm going to ask them some questions, and without conferring with one another, you're going to hold up whether the question applies more to him or her, okay?
Okay.
Here we go. Here's some questions, because in my mind, you guys are newlyweds, let me tell you.
We can see this. I'm not sure you can. This side is him, and this side is her.
Yeah.
Yes, we got a bowl, a little red bowl for the her, and...
Oh, I see.
Yes. All right, let's see. All right, ready?
You don't.
No, she does. Yes, on the him.
Oh, I see.
See,
Yes.
so we have to...
They're very fancy, very fancy. All right, first question. Who is the funniest? You got to make a decision. Hold it up. Wait a minute, Joan. All right. Wait. Oh, so you think the other. Okay. I have a feeling they're going to be so sweet to each other the whole way through that. Who does the cooking?
That varies.
Yeah, we both cook. Our deal is whoever cooks, the other one cleans up.
I like that. That just makes sense. Makes sense. Okay.
I probably cook more than you.
I think so.
All right, hold up him then. Go ahead. You guys are so sweet, though. All right, here we go. Who makes more errors, if any, during a performance? Now, don't look, Bill. You got to hold up. You got to make a choice.
You got to show it to the audience.
See, there's
Can you read it?
Yes.
No.
Well, actually, I would say I do, but you can't hear them because they're buried in the middle of the accompaniment. But usually I'm okay. But you occasionally do.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yes, they can second as weapons. We can. Okay. All right, here we go. Who cries first at a movie? If it's a tearjerker.
You don't cry, I don't think. You have to answer.
Well, I don't know. Probably.
He doesn't like this choice. He wants to elaborate. Okay. They agreed. All right, we have our first agreement there. Here we go. Let's see. What did I not ask? Here we go. All right. Who has the shorter fuse?
Yeah.
My house, it would be the opposite. It would be her, and I think we would agree. Yeah. Okay. Who is more competitive?
I don't know, either one of us really is.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, good. All right. Who is the better dancer?
I'm a klutz, so it has to be her.
Yeah. Who is the planner in the relationship?
Do we?
Well, things have to get done.
Well, it depends.
We both do it.
Yeah, she's the one who's wonderful at taking care of a business.
But he kind of decides if we're going to do it or not.
Yeah, something like that. So one of us looks at it in a different kind of way, that's all. I mean, I tend to be global. She tends to be detail-oriented.
Mm-hmm. You're the perfect team. Seriously. Are they not? I'm like, my God. Yes, the perfect team. All right, 2 more questions. Aww. 2 more questions. Who has the biggest sweet tooth?
Oh, definitely her.
Yeah.
And who wakes up singing?
Oh, God, certainly
But
not.
they say it has to be pretty, but who wakes up singing? Or maybe neither.
Well, it's very funny. My first marriage, my brother-in-law, and I still am pretty good friends with him, is Jeffrey Hayden, who was a TV director, and his wife is the wonderful Eva Marie Saint. And they've stayed friends all these years. They forgave me for the divorce in the first case because whatever reason, I won't get into that. But we see them very rarely. We catch them sometimes. And I remember I was sitting once with, you'd gone off to the bathroom, we were all talking, and Eva said, it must be wonderful to have somebody who sings around the house like Joan, and she will sing around the house. Mm-hmm. I don't play the piano around the house, but that's one of the things, that's one of the dividends. I've always loved her voice, and it's just one of the great things to be able to hear it.
Well, I was always singing. My dad would always say, don't sing at the dinner table, because I was always just humming and, and my girlfriends, one time, my mom had a birthday party for me. They all asked me to sing, and I said, I was like 12 or something. I said, okay, but everybody has to turn around. I didn't want anybody looking at me when I sang. I guess that's why I felt so comfortable recording. There was no audience out there. You just were doing it, to make it perfect. We were lucky enough when we did that album with Yubi to work with John Hammond, who recorded everybody from Bessie Smith to
Bruce Springsteen,
Bob
Dylan, all those people, all the great stars who worked with.
Yeah, you'd start a take and sometimes it'd go, but he would cut right in, which most engineers wouldn't do. He'd say, it's not happening, start over. Great, he saved you that whole take, which wouldn't have worked, So
we worked with a very famous team of people before, and Joe would say, wow, but let's do it again without telling us why it wasn't so good. We sort of sensed it was wrong, but when John said, I'm feeling it, it doesn't work, that's fine. So we go ahead and we wasted much less time, and he was just terrific. One of the great experiences working with that guy.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, I figured this was going to be a very fair, even scale here, and you showed that. All right, let's get back to a question from a viewer. What in William Blake's poems made you set the songs of innocence and experience on such a grand scale rather than just solo voice and piano?
It's what I found in the poems. I was 17 years old. I was an English minor at the University of Washington, and that was a terrific English department. The great poet Theodore Retke was there, and I had a chance to be able to study with him. And I fell in love with William Blake. And I started already in 1956. I was 18, and I began to start. But I always thought orchestrally. I thought this was such a big global thing that it required all kinds of forces. And I began. The good deal of the first piece in there is from that time. And then there's a song about the sick rose and the songs of experience. Those two things are from 1958, or 1956 rather. And then I sort of bogged down because I realized that I needed to look at the whole thing as a group. And the orders of the poems kept changing. He went through 28 different printings, and very few of them were the same printing. There was about 2 or 3 of the same printing, and that's the one that is usually used in most anthologies. But there was one that he had used once, and his one he had left actually for his wife, Catherine, who had learned to work with him. And should there ever be an order after he was gone for the Songs of Innocence, they would have been the order that he'd left for his wife. I happened to find this in the library, and I said, this is what I needed, because it had a dramatic shape, because it looked to me like it was a whole very long, linear sort of thing. And I don't think you would have been able to sit through 46 poems with just voice and piano anyway. I needed something as big and global as that. Some of them are very simple. The First Nurse's song is just guitar and piano. I mean guitar and voice. Joan sings that in the recordings. And others required a huge kind of enormous orchestral thing. So what I tried to do is to work them out into several big movements. There are sort of like 9 big sections, 3 big sections of Innocence and 6 for the Songs of Experience, of which there are more. And I found kind of like dramatic lines, and sort of in all those years I worked in theater, I began to see how a curve would begin to develop, and so I followed the curves. That's why I needed all those forces, and I was always surprised at the things I'd find myself doing. I got to the shepherd, which is normally second in the orders, and in this particular one it's preceded by the Echoing Green and the famous Little Lamb. And then in comes because when I got to it with this new order, I got a certain kind of musical impulse. And some of them really surprised the heck out of me. The one that particularly got me is when I got to the shepherd, I started going out in country and western. You know, like Jimmy Rogers. I mean, the classic old country and western. I said, I can't be doing this. I can't. Oh, no. And yet it wouldn't go away. I took the old Mozartian principle. He's supposed to have said, an idea comes to me and I try to reject it. I try to throw it out. I try to dump it. And if it keeps coming back and doesn't let me go, I guess I have to use it. So that's what happened. And I was very surprised. I'm suddenly writing country and western. I said, I can't be doing this. Well, then I suddenly realized, okay, every one of them is going to require whatever the impulse comes to me to do. When I got to be doing London, in the big I wandered through each charted street. I did the heavy rock one, and that was the very time. In fact, it happened. I started working on that just after John Lennon had been shot, at the Dakota Hotel in New York, and so I dedicated it to his memory. So it became this big monster rock number because that seemed the right thing for me. And so the more I saw in Blake was an eclectic poet. Some things were like street songs. Some things were, in his day, there were things called songsters, which are these little tiny books about this thick in which there were words to the songs of. The same thing as the 1728 Beggar's Opera, which is made up that same kind of way. And so some sound just like that kind of pop kind of on-the-street poems. Other things were very high line, very much involved with the great period of the metaphysicians of the 17th century and all the way through John Donne. And so the ones that had that higher level of poesy, if you want, called for a more complex kind of setting. So it all came from Blake. Whatever he suggested to me, I did. And I said, in his day, I would have probably, if I had been alive then, I would have probably worked with a different set of styles. But this was always available to me. And what was so surprising was to me that I found myself in territories that I never thought I'd be. Musically or compositionally, and that was the biggest influence on my life. I realized I could do what I had to do, but the idea had to impel me there. The idea had to take me where I was going to go. And what I loved was that it took me to very surprising places, and that's how that all got done.
It's sort of hearing you talk about it just sums up my impression of you. The fact that you're just, both of you, just so open to the experience that presents itself, open and confident to take on what is presented. I think that's magical, really is.
What's the thing Samuel Johnson said? He disliked nothing that was good of its sort. It doesn't matter if it's classical or popular. Is it good? You know, does it move you? Is it powerful? You know, it's so great when the Songs of Innocence are done. You're hanging out with, a country singer, with a rock guitarist, or, an opera singer, a concert singer, all ranges of it. That's really fun. And everybody talks and hangs out.
I'll never forget we had the very famous folk musician named Peter Mad Cat Ruth. happens to live in Ann Arbor. And I remember we brought him in for the performance in Ann Arbor, the one that was eventually recorded by Leonard Slatkin in the University Forum. That's the one that won all those Grammys. And Murray says, well, I'm not sure I belong in here. But it had turned out that in the previous performance, we had run into this virtuoso harmonicist. Oh. And I added a whole bunch of parts for him because I had him, Tommy Morgan, who did Rawhide and did all those other wonderful things Beach Boys and so on.
Yeah,
that's great.
So he was suddenly they were able to talk. Now, I guess.
But I think great music is great music.
Yep.
It doesn't matter the genre, and I think we need to look at it that way. Take it all in. I have a question. Yep. Does anyone in the audience have a question as we close things down? Don't be shy. Anybody want to say anything? Comment, question.
Don't all talk at once.
We're a room of shy people. Shy. All right. Just want to say a couple of things. Again, I want to sincerely thank my studio audience. I want to thank Bill and Joan for being utterly incredible, and I want to thank all the viewers who who logged in and were part of this experience. Please take a moment and join LMR, join the Living Music Resource, so you can stay up to date on what we're going to be doing and the projects we're going to be taking on, the people we're going to be talking with, and be part of the experience. Next academic year, we're going to hold 4 beats, 2 in the fall semester, 2 in the spring, and those are going to include composers, singers, and addiction specialists. But the most important thing is that we want you to be part of the experience, and even tying into the end of this conversation that we're not going to be prescriptive in thinking what type of music. Music is music. I want to cover all vocal aspects. And a reminder, this is free. This is free. And it's free because, for instance, today we had a fabulous sponsor, English-German Diction for Singers, a comparative approach by Amanda Johnson is one of our sponsors for today. I want to give a big shout out to her saying thank you. That book is now being published by Rowman and Littlefield. It's a fantastic text. Everyone should be looking at it. I want to thank the University of Mississippi. I want to thank the Ford Center. I want to thank Bruce, Max, and Robert Riggs. And I want to bring out my dream team before we go to the Amor video and a little closing. I have some fantastic students here who help make this stuff possible. And first I'd like to introduce Heather Higginbotham, who is my intern. Come on up. It doesn't matter. Come on up. She's barefoot. She's barefoot. I want to introduce Heather. And she's helped out with Bill and Joan a lot. I'd like to introduce Claudia Salcedo, Megan Brock, Rachel Dennis. Come on up, please. Carly Reeder, Katie McLaughlin, Shalene Sugar. We have awesome students here at the University of Mississippi who go above and beyond, hardworking, focused, and I want to thank them for making this possible. Let's remember that the Living Music Resource, we are on a music research revolution, and we hope you now enjoy our Amor video that we put together with the salsa-inspired feet.
It wasn't the policeman's fault in all of the traffic roar. Instead of shouting halt when he saw me, he shouted amor, 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 amor. Even the ice cream man, free ice creams by the score. Instead of shouting butter pecan, one look at me, he shouted amor, amor, amor. All over town it went that way. Everybody took off the day. Even philosophers understood. How good was the good, 'cause I looked so good. The poor stopped taking less. The rich stopped needing more. Instead of shouting no and yes, all looking at me shouted amor. My stay in town was cut short. I was dragged to court. The judge said I disturbed the peace, and the jury gave him what for. The judge raised his hand, and instead of desist and cease. Judgy came to the stand, took my hand, and whispered, Amor, 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 amor. Night was turning into day. I walked alone away. Never see that town again. But as I passed the church house door,